Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar on the Sage 50 Payroll Pensions module. My name's Duncan, I'm your host and presenter, and we are joined this afternoon by my colleague Calvin, who is standing by in the background, ready to answer any questions. Let's now take a look at what we'll cover in the webinar. So we'll start with a brief introduction outlining an employer's automatic enrolment duties and a quick overview of the features of the pensions module. We're then going to take a closer look by giving you some demonstrations on the pension assessment, and this will also include the opting in and opting out process and how to apply postponement to employees where you want to delay their enrolment for a period of time. We'll then move on and discuss send pension data, and we're going to run through the different options available with the pensions module to make it easier to exchange information with your provider. And then we'll show you the send pension correspondence option, where you manage all of the communications with your employees, keeping an audit trail of the letters that you would need to send them at various points in their pensions journey. I'll then run through some of the further support available, and we will try to stick around to get as many of your questions answered as possible. So let's get straight on to the introduction. And we're going to start by running through the automatic enrolment duties that apply to all employers within the UK. So there are a set of duties that you need to comply with at the point you become an employer or at your staging date historically. So these regulations came in a phased way between 2012 and 2017 for existing employers, and you have immediate duties as a new employer as of the date that you take on your first employee. So you will need to make sure you have a pension scheme in place, and it needs to be a qualifying scheme, which means it meets the conditions laid out by the pensions regulator. You need to work out which of your staff needs to be put into a pension based on specific criteria. You need to write to your employees to let them know how automatic enrolment would affect them. And at your duty start date or your staging date, you would declare your compliance by registering and providing information on the pensions regulator's website. Now, for pretty much all of you, you'd have already completed those initial duties, unless you're a brand new employer about to take on your first employee. But it doesn't stop there, because there are a set of ongoing duties. And this is where the pensions module will really help you to keep all of this under control. So on an ongoing basis, you do need to monitor the age and earnings of all of your staff. And when they trigger automatic enrolment, when they meet that specific criteria, you do need to make sure they are then put into a pension scheme. You'll need to maintain contributions to your scheme, so deducting from your employee and also making employer contributions. You would manage requests to join or leave your scheme, known as opting in and opting out. You need to keep records to show how you've complied with the duties, and then every 3 years, you need to complete re-enrolment of staff that have previously left or opted out of a pension scheme. And re-enrolment is something that we cover separately in another session. We're actually doing that one tomorrow at 2 p.m. So if you want to know more about re-enrolment, get yourself signed up. Now, you can read more about these duties on the pensions regulator website. So we put a link to that on the slide there. But let's now take a look at the main features of the pensions module, which is designed to eliminate the admin burden of automatic enrolment. So these are the 3 areas that we're going to focus on today. So the pension assessment is a task that you will run as part of your pay run after you've entered the current payments and deductions. Send pension data is a process of sending any new enrolments and contribution details to your pension provider. And sending pension correspondence is a duty that you have at various points, for example, when an employee joins your company for the first time or when they're put into a pension scheme for the first time. So these 3 modules within the pensions module, these 3 options are what you'll be using on an ongoing basis. Now, if you don't currently have the pensions module or you haven't yet set it up, there is a link to support on how to do that. We're not going to cover the setup process today, but if you download the handout, the link at the bottom of the screen there will give you all the information that you need. So before we go into the demonstrations, I just thought we'd run a quick poll just to find out a little bit more about our audience today. So if you take a look on screen, what I'd like you to tell me is whether or not you currently use the pensions module. So I've got 4 options for this poll. So the first one is, I have the pensions module, but I don't use it. But you do use it. The second one is, I have it, but I don't use it. The third one is, you don't have the pensions module. And the fourth one I've put in there for anyone that isn't quite sure. And as we are now over 80% voted, just going to close that down. And let's just share those results for you. So in our audience today, 62% of you have the pensions module and use it. So hopefully the demos today will help to explain why you're running these options and maybe show you some of the things that perhaps you haven't noticed before. 20% of you have it but don't use it. So we'll try to explain today why it might be important to use it or how it could help you streamline some of your processes. 11% don't currently have the pensions module, so you'll be doing it manually. So this is a good look at what is available to help make that process a bit simple for you. We've got 7% who don't know. So hopefully once you've seen the demos, you'll know whether or not you've got access to those options. So thank you for completing the poll. Let's now just move on and take a look at the first of the main areas of the pensions module, and that is the pension assessment screen. So quick look at what that actually does. So the purpose of a pension assessment is to identify eligible staff and assign them to a pension scheme if they're not already in a scheme. So to be eligible, an employee needs to be aged between 22 and state pension age and earn above the earnings trigger for automatic enrolment, which is the equivalent of £10,000 per year. It's also used to process opt-in requests, where employees ask you to join the pension scheme, opt-outs, where an employee leaves the pension scheme, and refunds if they opt out within a 1-month window. And there's a postponement option. So this is something you as an employer can use to help you manage auto enrolment, and it helps you deal with new starters who are perhaps short-term workers or employees who have what we call a pay spike. And we'll explain a bit more about that as we go into the demo. So I'm just going to bring these slides down and we'll jump into Sage 50 Payroll. So first of all, where to find the pensions module options. They're all within the payroll tasks. So you'll see them dotted around your usual processing tasks. So pension assessment, as you can see here on the left-hand side, is what you'd run straight after entering your employees' payments. Dealing with pension data, so sending pension data, reviewing your pension payments, and sending pension correspondence is towards the end of your payroll process. So these are things that you would do after you've updated records and submitted your FPS. Now you can see these same tasks laid out on the process map. So if you're on the payroll module, just change to payroll process. You can resize that screen if you need to, and you'll see same options appear in this process map. So a handy way of working out when to run each option by following the steps left to right. Now, if you're setting up for the first time, you will need to go into your pensions module settings. So we'll take a very quick look at those first. So you go to the company tasks here on the left-hand side, and then click onto pensions module settings here on the left. Because I've already set it up, it takes me straight into the settings screen. And it's where it confirms your original staging or duty start date. So in my case, it was the 1st of March, 2019. It's where you set your default auto enrollment pension scheme. And then if required, you can set up additional schemes that apply to specific departments or cost centers by setting up exceptions here on the right-hand side. And there are also some postponement defaults that will choose a postponement date that is aligned to a pay reference period. So you can use this to suggest postponement dates when applying postponement either to the next available pay reference period or the latest possible pay reference period within the 3 months allowed. But we'll cover postponement in a bit more detail in the demo. The other setting that we'll not go into today, but we do cover in tomorrow's webinar, is the cyclical re-enrollment settings. So this comes into play every 3 years, where you need to put people back into the pension if they've left or opted out. So those are our pensions module settings, but we are going to now return to our payroll tasks. I'm going to select my employees. Now, I've already started my payroll process, so I've got as far as entering the payments. So we've got all of the payments entered for the current period, and the next step I'm going to run is the pension assessment. So we can launch that from your payroll tasks, and the first thing it does is it prompts you to take a backup, as there are certain changes that can be made in the pension assessment that you can only easily undo by restoring a backup. So I'd always recommend you take a backup to this prompt by clicking yes, and then you can work through your backup wizard and maybe rename the backup. Call this one pre-assessment. So you've got that point to restore back to should you need it. That will then take a few moments to load up the pension assessment screen, and the results of the assessment are then displayed in this table. So a quick look at the information that we're seeing here. So it starts with the employee details, the name, employee reference, and national insurance number. And then the type column will indicate what worker category they fall into. And it is the eligible type that need to be put into a pension scheme and then given the option to opt out if they wish to. So you can see that many of my employees are eligible. And if we look at the status just next to it, most of those eligible employees are set as auto-enrolled. Now with the status, you can get more details on the results of an assessment just by hovering over the little spyglass. So you can see that this first employee is an eligible job holder. So their qualifying earnings are above the trigger. They're between 22 and state pension age. They're a UK worker. And we can see that they were originally auto-enrolled back on our duty start date, the 1st of March 2019. So other statuses you might see are opt-out or cessation. So this is where an employee has left a pension scheme. So this employee opted out on the 15th of March of last year. And then you'll see some that don't have a status. So I've got a dash next to it, but you can still hover over to see why they were assessed, in this case as non-eligible. And the reason that this employee isn't eligible is their age. They are above state pension age, and therefore they do not meet the criteria to be automatically enrolled. Now, next up, you have the pension scheme details for anyone who is in the pension scheme. So it shows the scheme name, the scheme contribution, so the percentage and amount for both employee and employer. Refunds would show if you process an opt-out request, and then you've got your total pension contribution here in the right-hand column. And you can see at the bottom, I've got 15 employees, and my pension payment currently for this period will be £847.21. So when you run a pension assessment, if you want to keep a record of the details, you can either email it to yourself or to a colleague. You can print the details, or you can export as a CSV. And if you do print it out, it's going to look something like this, which I'll just show you on screen. So it pretty much shows you the same information that you're viewing on screen, but this printout gives you a record of what the assessment looked like at the time. So as well as assessing your employees, you might have noticed that we've got some flags that appear next to some of the employees' names. So here on the left-hand side, it indicates if there's any change compared to the last assessment. And if you hover over the flag, it'll tell you what has changed. So it's telling me that this particular employee's category has changed. They have now become an eligible job holder. And the reason that happened in this case is due to a pay spike. So a pay spike is where the earnings were previously below the earnings trigger. And in this period, they have gone up, they have spiked above the earnings trigger. And you would then need to sort of look at it and understand whether that is a permanent increase in pay or it is a genuine spike, and usually they are going to earn below the trigger, and that's where you might consider using postponement. So you can either look down this column, or there are some handy filters at the top. So what we can do is we can check for changes this period, and actually I've got 3 in total. So I've got another category change, an employee who turns 22. So they are now being auto-enrolled, and I have a new starter who has met the criteria, and they, at the moment, are being automatically enrolled. So really handy way of quickly monitoring for changes by using the filter here at the top. So what we'll take a look at next is the opt-in process. So you might have noticed there are 3 buttons at the top to manage opt-in requests, opt-out requests, and postponement. So we're going to go through each of these in turn. Now, an opt-in request is where an employee who is not automatically enrolled is asking you to go into the pension scheme. And the way that they do that is they simply write to you. It can be electronic communication as well. So they could email you requesting that they join the workplace pension scheme and that they have personally submitted this request. So if you receive an opt-in request, you need to record the details here. You then choose the pension scheme you're going to put them into, and it will need to be a qualifying scheme if they fall into the non-eligible category. And then they'll be put into the pension scheme with effect from the next pay reference period. So let's have a look at an opt-in request. I'm going to click opt-in/join here at the top. And because I've got everyone selected, it shows me all of the possible employees that might opt into a pension scheme. So this way you can just enter the date of the request and choose the scheme. Or generally it's only going to be 1 or a handful of requests you get at a time. You can actually find the employee that wants to opt in. So it was this one, employee 6, who's given us an opt-in request. And you can click opt-in/join here at the top. So what you record is the date that you received the request. So let's say that came in today, and then you choose the pension scheme that you're going to put them into. So I only have 1 qualifying scheme. This is the one I'm going to put them into. You can attach any supporting documentation if you've got an electronic copy by clicking this attach option. And then if you find that the opt-in button isn't active, just click back into the date and it will be. And then you can click opt-in, and that change is now successfully applied. So as you can see, it has assigned the pension scheme and it's added the status of opt-in. But there are currently no pension contributions, and the reason for that is with an opt-in request, they go in with effect from the next pay reference period, and for a monthly payroll, that will be the start of the next tax month. So officially, they'll be enrolled into the pension scheme, in this case, on the 6th of August. Now, if you compare that with someone who's been auto-enrolled, like employee 7, they've gone in immediately with effect from the start of the current pay reference period. So a slight difference with opt-in is that there's a slight delay to the next period. So that's all you need to do with an opt-in request. Select the employee, record the date, choose the pension scheme. We'll take a look at opting out next. So opting out from the employee's point of view is a process that would be defined by the pension provider. So they can't just write to you. They can't just ask their employer to opt out. They do need to follow a defined process from the provider. So they might get a form from your pension provider, fill that in and give it to you, or they might opt out another way, perhaps through an online portal. Now, whichever way they complete the opt out, you will be notified, and you'll need to record the details here in the assessment screen. And if they do opt out within a month of their active membership starting, they are entitled to a refund of any contributions made. So I actually have an employee further down my list. I'm going to search for them just to show you this quick search option. So you can just put some characters of an employee's name, and that will bring up the results just here. And you can see currently they're auto-enrolled. They were enrolled last month on the 12th of June. But they have received all the information about the pension scheme. They've decided it's not for them, and they have followed the opt-out process, and we have now been notified. So to process the opt-out request, you select the relevant employee and click opt-out/leave. You record the date of the opt-out request, and I'm going to use today's date again. And if that's within 1 month of active membership, you'll be able to tick a box which will refund the first month's contributions, which was a total of £26.77 for this particular employee. Again, you can attach any evidence if you wish to, and that will be added to the employee record on the Documents tab. And if I complete the request by clicking Opt Out, you'll see that the status has now changed to opt out. And when I click OK, it's removed the current contributions and it's replaced it with a refund, which is the total refund, including the employer amount. So this employee is now opted out and they're going to get a refund on their current payslip. So the other one I want to show you is postponing. So you'll remember that I've got 3 employees that have just become eligible this period. And whenever that happens, you do have an option as an employer of postponing their enrollment. This allows you to put back their enrollment date by up to 3 months. And then on that postponement date, they'll be assessed again. And if they are still eligible at that point, that's when they would go into the pension scheme. So it's generally used if you're taking on short-term employees that you know aren't going to be staying with you very long, and also commonly used for a pay spike. So if you've got usually low-paid employees that are below the earnings trigger, they perhaps get a one-off bonus that pushes them above the earnings trigger, triggers auto-enrollment. You could postpone them until next pay date or the next pay period when you know that their earnings would return back to a normal level. So to do a postponement, you can hit the postpone button. I've still got everyone selected, so it's going to show me anyone eligible for postponement. So 3 employees, reasons why they were enrolled. So for this one, the only one I'm going to select is my new starter. And I'm going to set their postponement date to the latest date possible. So let me choose up to October the 6th. And then we can complete the postponement by clicking postpone. Now, in this case, the pay spike has actually been caused by an employee increasing their hours. They're going to be on the increased hours for the foreseeable. So I've decided just to put them into the scheme at this point. But if it was a genuine spike and their pay was going to go back down to a lower level, that is a time where you might consider using postponement to avoid enrolling them. So we've got our postponement date entered. I'll hit the postpone button here at the bottom. So I've got 1 employee who has now been postponed. And if we take a look again at employee 15, it's taken away the pension scheme. It's set the status to postponed, and it's removed all of the contribution information. So again, when you're finished with the assessment, don't forget to print it out if you want a copy of it. You can then close out of this screen, and then you're ready to move on with your payroll. So just want to quickly show you what's happened behind the scenes for a couple of these employees. So if I go into the employee records, so employee 6 opted in, so their status on the pensions tab now shows opt-in, and we can see the pension scheme is ready to be used from the 6th of August, which was the next pay reference period. Employee 7 was auto-enrolled, so they had the pay spike, but they've permanently increased their hours, so we're going to keep them in. And you can see they've been assigned to the pension scheme with effect from the start of the tax month. Employee 14 has opted out, so it's put a leave date in the pension scheme. And if we take a look at the payslip, we'll see that there's a refund processed, and employee 15 is postponed. So no scheme assigned as yet, but if they're still with us as of this date, on the next assessment, if they're still eligible, they will go into the scheme. So we would then complete payroll as normal. I just want to quickly show you the refund on the payslip. So these are my pay slips for this period. It was actually employee 14 that has a refund. So you can see these negative values against the employee and employer pension. And it's removed all of the year-to-date value. It's as if they were never in the scheme. Now, once you've got your pay slips and reports, you'd update your records. And then you would submit your FPS in the usual way. So that's the pension assessment. That's the main option you'll be using with the pensions module. So we're going to move on and briefly talk about some of the post-update tasks. So next up, we're going to talk send pension data. Because there are a number of different pension providers that you can choose from, there are a number of different ways that you can prepare and send the information that they need. So we'll run through the main options that you get. So first one to mention is Pensions Data Exchange. I think of this a little bit like RTI, but for pension providers. So enrolment and contribution data is submitted directly to supported pension providers. Some of them also give you the option of importing opt-out information and any scheme changes. And this is compatible with Nest, the People's Pension, Standard Life, and we're also running an early adopter program for smart pensions. So a couple of clicks of the button once it's set up will transmit the information directly to your provider. You wouldn't need to log into their portal separately to send this information, and it would send through the enrolments and contributions for the relevant employees. And what I have done is I've put a link on the slide to our Pensions Data Exchange Support Hub, and this is where you can find out more about this option and how it works for the different providers. Second option is to export a CSV file using the Send Pension Data option in your program. So if you have this enabled, you can create CSV files for Nest, Now Pensions, or the People's Pension. So that will be in the exact format required for your pension provider. And once it's been produced by the Send Pension Data wizard, you would upload it to your provider, uploading any enrolment and contribution details. And you would then confirm that that file was accepted. So you'd mark it as confirmed, or if it wasn't accepted for any reason and you need to make a change to the data first, you can reject it, make the changes, and then export the information again. So this one works with Nest, Now Pensions, or the People's Pension. And there's more information on the process from the link on screen. So those are some of the big providers. Loads of other pension providers are available. So we have written a set of reports specific to the pension providers. These reports can be output to Excel, which will create a CSV file in the format required by your provider. So you can get a copy of the report from us. You would then run that report to Excel, save as a CSV, and upload it to your pension provider's portal. So it's available for all pension providers. If your provider for some reason isn't on our list, and you can get us the specification, we will produce that report for you. That service is available to all pensions module customers. So again, more information on the supported providers is available from the link. So no demo for this one, but I will point out where you can find the Send Pension Data option in your program, and the links to our help center should hopefully fill in the blanks there and let you know what you would need to do for your specific scenario. So the other task post-update is all involving pension correspondence. So these are the letters that you would send to your employees at various points. So for example, when an employee joins you, you need to send them a letter within 6 weeks explaining to them how auto-enrollment will affect them. If an employee goes into the pension scheme, you'll send a confirmation letter to them, and that will record the fact that active membership has been achieved. And if you ever apply postponement, a letter is required to inform the employee about what's happening. So you can then, so they can make a choice to opt in early if they want to. So what this option does is it keeps all of your communications in one place. So it generates the letters off the back of a pension assessment. It will show you the due date for each letter, and it will allow you to produce it either as a printed letter or emailed if you've entered electronic document settings. You can keep records of when the letters were sent. So the date that you send a job holder letter or an enrolment letter is the date at which active membership has been achieved. So you would send that at the same time you've sent details to the pension provider, and it keeps an audit trail. So you'll see in the demo this historical information that you can filter by date or by employee. So let's just jump back to the demo. We've updated the records. Send pension data, if you use Pensions Data Exchange or you use it to export a CSV file, can be found just here in the process. If you're not using this option, The report that we provide, you would usually save in the user defined folder within your reports. There is an option to review your pension payments for the period as well. So that produces a report, which I'll quickly show you. So this is my one for July for all the active scheme members. So it shows the amount of their contributions. This is what would have been included in the contribution file that I send to my provider. And then the last option in the list is sending pension correspondence. Now, if there have been no changes, it's likely that there will be no letters for you to send, but it's worth checking anyway. So you can go into send pension correspondence like so. And because we did have a number of changes in our last assessment, you can see we've got a set of letters ready to go. So with these, it tells you what type of letter it is. So the general notice is produced for any new starter, whether or not they're going into the pension scheme. So I've got one of them for employee 15. We've got enrollment job holder letters. So this is the letter that you send to employees that you're putting into the scheme. And we've got a postponement letter for that employee that we chose to postpone. Now, if you want to see the letter before you print it, you can get a preview by clicking on any of these links. So, for example, the job holder letter just confirms the duty start date for the business, the criteria to be eligible, and the enrollment date. Picks up scheme details from your pension scheme settings, and it tells them that they do have the right to opt out of the scheme if they wish to. Gives illustrations of the minimum contributions by law. And then it gives them the next steps. So if you're staying in the pension scheme, you don't do anything. If you want to opt out, you need to contact your provider, essentially. So it might be an opt-out form, could be a different opt-out process. So that's just a preview of the letter, but to actually produce them, what you do is you select the letters that you want to produce, and I've just ticked them all. You record the date that you sent the letter to the employee. So these are all being sent on pay date in my example. So I've recorded 31st of July as the sent on date. You can see the due dates. So we're well ahead of the due dates. It's generally 6 weeks from when the event happened, from when they meet the criteria, for example, or they join the business. And then you record who sent the letter. So if you are doing this yourself, as I am, you would choose user. If writing to your employees is a service provided by your pension provider, we still recommend that you run send pension correspondence so that your records are up to date, but you can choose provider to say, the provider sent this out, they sent it on this date, then you can hit the send button. So I'm going to choose user. The format for all of these letters is print because I haven't entered any electronic document settings, so I don't email payslips. That's why I'm only being given the print option. And if I click on to send, I'm going to send using the specified format, which in our case is printing anyway. Click on to send, and then it'll prompt you to print out each of the different types of letter. So this is the general notice. Just going to cancel out of the print screens because I don't actually want to print them out. It's then going to come up with the job holder letters for the employee that opted in and the ones that got auto-enrolled, and then the postponement letter for our new starter. So you then get confirmation that you've produced the letters for 4 employees. Click OK, and that removes it from the letters to be sent. And then, as promised, we'll have a look at the historical letters. So we can see different dates that letters have been produced in the past. So last month, for example, if I tick this one, we had the general notice and the job holder letter for a new starter who has since opted out. And then earlier in the year, we did some re-enrollment. Actually, last year, some re-enrollment notices were sent out. So a bit of a sneak preview on tomorrow's webinar, that one. So I'm going to close out the send pension correspondence. That's all done. Another neat feature it does is it attaches a copy of the letter to the employee records. So I'll just pick a couple of these employees. If you go on the Documents tab, job holder letter is now attached for employee 6, and also here for employee 7. So if you ever need to track it back, that's another way you can do so. And sending the letter also records the active membership date. So if I just take you to the pension settings for this particular employee, they join the scheme with effect from the start of the tax month, but their active membership, the point at which we confirmed their enrolment, sent the details to the provider, was the date we sent that letter, 31st of July in this case, and they have a 1 month period from this date to opt out and be eligible for a refund. So that is about it for the demo. So we've seen the 3 main areas of the pensions module, and we're just going to try and link some of that back to the auto enrolment duties that we looked at the start of the session. So monitoring the age and earnings of your staff, we can tick off. That's done as part of the pension assessment, and that is also where you can view the contributions, which will appear on the pay slips, etc. You can manage requests to join or leave the scheme by recording opting in and opting out details, and records are kept. For example, for the communications that you send, the history of the auto enrolment status is in the employee records, and you can export those pension assessments should you wish to in the different formats. Also comes with built-in re-enrollment features, which we're going to cover in tomorrow's webinar. But we've got all those boxes ticked off, and it's made that a little bit simpler using the Sage Pensions module. So we have about 5 minutes of scheduled time left, so we will continue working through any questions in the Q&A section, but I want to quickly run through the further support that's available to you. So you'll have seen various links in the handout to our support articles. You can find all of these on our help centre at sage.co.uk/help. Just follow the links to Sage 50 Payroll. From here, you can search our knowledge base. You can read our support guides. So we have a section dedicated to workplace pensions. You can also see upcoming webinars. So your webinar link is found towards the top of the help centre, sage.co.uk/help, and you'll be able to view short videos as part of our support guides. If you do need to get in touch with the support team, all of the contact details are also found from this same area. As well as that, you can get access to Sage University at sageu.com. This is completely free. You can complete e-learning courses. We do have some based on the pensions module, if that's something you want to explore further. You can also do our online certification by completing the exams, and there are bite-sized learning courses as well to dip in and out of whenever you want to brush up on your Sage 50 payroll skills. So with that, I'm going to go on to mute briefly just to help out with any of the questions that have come in. So last chance to submit them via the Q&A, and also to download the handouts if you'd like a copy. For anyone that is leaving us now, thanks so much for joining us at the webinar today. When you click exit on the webinar, you will be presented with a short survey. So I'd really appreciate any feedback that you might have if you could spend a moment just to complete that. We do read all of your comments, and it does help us to keep these sessions relevant and improve them on an ongoing basis. We'll also send you a follow-up email, so look out for that. I'll have a copy of the recording from today's session, so a link to watch that, as well as another link to the survey if you missed it earlier. So I will now go on to mute, but when we are done with the questions, I'll come back on to say our final goodbye. So I'll speak to you soon. Hello again, everyone, and thanks for sticking with us here till the end of the webinar. Looks like we have sent a response to all of the questions, so thanks so much for sending them through. Certainly been some great questions in there, and I hope the answers have helped. Quick reminder about the survey as you leave. If you could spend a moment to complete that, we'd really appreciate it. And do look out for your follow-up email arriving later on today. It's got the links to register for our future webinars, and also that link at the bottom to watch the recording of today's session. So all that remains on behalf of myself and Calvin is to thank you once again for your time today. Hope you've enjoyed the session, and we look forward to seeing you on another webinar soon. Goodbye for now.